Hey, welcome to Learning Self-Reliance. My name is Roland, and today I'm going to be taking this canvas drop cloth and I'm going to be turning it into an oil canvas tarp. So I just went to Home Depot, grabbed this 9x12 canvas painter's drop cloth for about, I think it was like 20 or 30 bucks. And I'm going to be soaking it in linseed oil, boiled linseed oil, to waterproof it. I went on a bug out a couple of months ago, and my original intention with this was to create a tarp to be used in bug outs. But with this canvas tarp, the problem is this thing's going to end up weighing about 20 pounds or something like that, which is far too heavy to use in a bug out, right? I'm going to use this tarp with my truck to cover my truck bed instead. This is plenty big. It's a little bit bigger than that, but that's great because I could prop it up and camp and sleep on my truck bed if I needed to. But all I've got right here, it's going to be pretty straightforward. This isn't going to be anything too crazy. I've got some mineral spirits substitute. I've seen a lot of people use mineral spirits, but I just could not find mineral spirits locally. So I'm going to try this mineral spirit substitute. That's another part of this little experiment. The mineral spirits is only added to speed up the drying time of the boiled linseed oil. So I've got this boiled linseed oil right here. This is what's going to be the waterproofing agent for the tarp. I'm going to pour this in half and half, 1 part mineral spirits, 1 part boiled linseed oil, and then I'm just going to mix this in, make sure it's totally covered, then I'm going to hang it up to dry, to cure. This boiled linseed oil does have a caution on the can. It talks about how if confined or without ventilation, the boiled linseed oil can spontaneously combust. So I'm going to make sure that I hang this guy up outside and leave it for a few days so that it can dry off. The mineral spirit should speed up the dry time to a couple of days rather than a couple of weeks. All right. Just going to take this and do about half of each in here. For some reason this can is busted. Came like that. Oh well. Trying to make sure my bucket's clean from most of the junk in there. And again, this is just mineral spirits substitute. I can't find mineral spirits locally. So we'll see if this works. Looked around online, I didn't see anybody mention using mineral spirits substitute instead of mineral spirits, but good, it's not really leaking. Put this lid on. And now for the boiled linseed oil. Oops, spilled a bit there. It's alright. Okay. That's probably about half and half, something like that. I'm not going to go exact and make sure it's all perfect, but just make sure this is all mixed up a bit here. Fairly viscous, feels like watery motor oil. Alright, I decided to throw down a tarp because I was getting bits of junk on my canvas here. I didn't want that to ruin the waterproofing, so since this is the initial dipping, so basically you just dip this in. Make sure it's permeated, soaked through. Kind of got a greenish yellow tint to it right now. Could just be the amount of sunlight that I'm getting right now. But I may end up dyeing this later. I'm hoping for a light brown. Gonna have to squeeze this out. We got so much cloth here. I don't want to run out of mixture before I'm done with this. Yeah, so I'm just trying to make sure it's evenly coated, squeezing it all through. Honestly, I can probably just dump this whole thing in here and just kind of mix it. Let's just try that. Yeah, it's kind of working. Then I'll need to flip it over Sounds fantastic, brother. Will definitely attract the females. Okay. Don't want to lose any of this oil here, so I'm going to flip this kind of over, put it in like this, get the bottom of it in there. Yeah, this is a humongous tarp, right? I was originally thinking, hey, maybe I can bring this on bushcraft. No way. Bringing it on a bug out, on a walking bug out. No way. Wow, this soaked up all of it already. All right, so I'm gonna squeeze out what I can from this end, but we're gonna need quite a bit more in here. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna shove this in here and I'm gonna pour it right on it instead. All right, we're just gonna pour it like this, something like that. And I'm gonna have to make sure this is all stirred up because there's gonna be different amounts of oil and stuff like that on different parts of this. So I'm gonna really have to, fold it flat out on the ground and really look at it. The canvas here has got some interesting different colors. I don't know how well this is showing up on camera, but this is not a hole, it's just black thread. Kind of interesting that it came like that. Glad I went with the larger size of these cans. I may end up using all of this, which is all right. Ends up making it a bit pricey though. All in all, this is probably about $60 or $80, but I've thought about getting like a Sil-9 nylon tarp for doing my walking bug out stuff, but and bushcraft, but it is just too susceptible to embers from the fire. Let me move this over and kind of mix this stuff up, trying not to get my pants too badly with all of this. Really glad I put this tarp down. It's something so large, it's just required to have it so big. So the nylon tarps are just too susceptible to embers. I mean, I've got my sleeping bag and it's just got little holes in it just from embers floating off the fire, landing on it, you know. This is not as pretty as I'd hoped. I probably should have just put a whole huge amount, put the whole cans in at the beginning, but I really didn't expect it would use this much. But it is just soaking it up. It's all right. So it's a bit more mineral spirits than oil, but that's okay. The nice part about this is if I need to do another treatment in the future, I can, and just re-waterproof it. This is about as much as I had when I first did the first dip of this. So I think I've got quite a bit in here. Okay. Trying to find the more drier spots, get them kind of in there. Kind of mix this all around, something like that. Yeah, I think if I had a bigger bucket, this would probably be a lot easier. But I do not have a bigger bucket. That I'm willing to sacrifice to this, right? I've got some food grade or something, but I don't want to put all this crap in there. This really actually doesn't have much of an odor to it. The mineral spirits specifically, the linseed oil's got quite an odor to it, but it's not that big of a deal. We'll look like we're getting almost done with this thing, so that's good. All right, I'm gonna dip this part. It looks a little bit less dipped than the others. Get this right in there. I wonder if you could use some water just to spread out the oil. I mean, it's not gonna mix, right? Because it's oil and water, but it might allow mixing of it a little bit better. Let me make sure this is all in frame for you guys. My shoes are gonna be quite slippery after this. Yeah, so this is an interesting color. If I need to dye this, I can go get some, I've seen people use concrete dye or shoe dye. Just some, apparently you can just get some Ritz dye. But I think a coyote brown or something like that would be perfect for just Utah area. Just kind of the stuff we've got here. Okay, I'm just unfolding this, looking around. It's looking really good. I don't see any light spots on it. So I'm gonna call this good. I've got a bit extra here. So I'll probably pour this into one of those buckets and one of those cans and keep it. Got quite a bit of oil on this tarp though, but that's okay. I'll have to hang this tarp up as well. Or, you know, I could probably just rinse it off. Looking good, looking good. Yeah, so this thing is very heavy. But a lot of it's going to be mineral oil, and that's all going to evaporate off. Mineral spirits. That's all going to evaporate off. Only the oil should remain. But yeah, this thing should weigh something like 20 pounds after all is said and done. Oh, and by the way, this said it was a cotton drop cloth, but it's like 54% cotton, 43% polyester. So it's not completely cotton, but I'm thinking this is going to be much more ember retardant. All right, I'm going to get this guy hung up. All right, here we are. I've got my oil tarp, canvas tarp here, strung up. It's not pretty, but it's got plenty of airflow in this area. I just tied it up to random objects to hold it still. So I just tied this around this old fence post, cinched it down tight so it's not going to pull off of that ball on the end there. Over here, I put in a rock and tightened around the rock and used that as my tie down point. So this doesn't have any loops or anything on the outside to hold it down with. So I just went with a couple of rocks to hold it up. And I've just got it suspended up here with plenty of air. And over here, I've rinsed off my tarp that I use just as to keep the area clean. And I've just got it rinsed off really well. And I've got it straightened out here. Well, everything went as planned. I did end up using a bit more linseed oil than I'd expected, but it's not a big deal. I'll catch up to you guys and show you guys the finished product in a few days. All right, it's been a week with this canvas tarp here curing. I think this was cured after about 3 or 4 days, but I let it go just a little bit longer to see if there was a difference. But if I feel the center of this that was hanging a bit lower, it kind of feels a little bit more tacky than the outside. So it could be that some of my oil flowed into the middle because of the unevenness of how this was hanging, which could have been a problem. But I'm going to test out some of the waterproofing in the future and see if that's true. All right, I'm not sure how well you can see this on camera, but over here there appears to be less oil cured than over here. Over here it's kind of tacky and much more thick feeling than it is over here, though I can still feel oil over here. So I believe it did cover the whole surface, but it didn't cover it evenly. This tarp does feel very strong, and I have a feeling it's going to handle those embers fantastically. I'm not sure about the waterproofing, as I said, but this may need a second coat. All right, I got the tarp all pulled down and folded up. This is quite heavy. If I had to guess, I would say something about 10 pounds or so. Oh, one of the little rocks that I used still stuck in there. This does handle dirt really well. I was a bit worried that any dirt that would touch this would kind of stick to it, but the oil is cured well enough that nothing really sticks to it. But I can feel oil throughout this entire thing. It's just a little bit tacky and doesn't really feel a whole lot like cloth anymore. This canvas is mostly polyester, but quite a bit of cotton as well. Overall, I'm really happy with this. It doesn't have any tie downs, which is fine for its intended use, but this will be great to throw over the back of my pickup truck and tie things down and keep them covered, and hopefully some rainproofing there. But again, I'll have to try that out in the future. I don't have any really rain. If I was to do this tarp over again, I'd probably try to find a better place to hang this where it's a bit more consistent and probably have a bit more linseed oil to soak through. I just didn't quite have enough to soak it completely through. It ended up using, I probably needed at least a gallon of it. I had a gallon jug, but I'd used some of it, so I probably only had 3/4 of a gallon or something into this guy. But overall, I'm really happy with it, and if I need to coat it with more linseed oil, I can. Not a big deal. That's the nice part about this. All right, well, thanks for watching. This is really going to help me to make my oilskin tarp with just a bed sheet or something in the future to be used for backpacking and long-term bug out situations. But thanks for watching, and please remember to like and subscribe.